Today on The State of Us, paper money diehards aren't willing to fold. You'll want to cut this newspaper clipping out. And goodbye, senior. Hello, older adult. Some 200 years after textile workers smashed newfangled looms here during the first stirrings of the Industrial Revolution, other rebels are worried about a newer tech, tap-and-go bank cards and smartphone payment apps. Cash changes hands in only around 15% of transactions in the UK, pushed out by the convenience of using a card or phone. We're going to talk about that and also look at the resurgence of cutting out newspaper clippings, or maybe the lack of resurgence, and goodbye to the term senior and hello to the term older.
This is my episode, isn't it?
This is the episode.
I got to pick all of these.
Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined today by the one and only, our friendly redneck liberal and the senior resident historian here at True Chat, Mr. Lance Jackson. You know that senior resident historian.
I am in all three of these articles from the Wall Street Journal. So this is front page. All three of these come from the front page of different Wall Street journals. So it is nice to be remembered and to be thought of.
Well, I guess it's fitting that it's on the front page of a printed newspaper.
It is. That is true. And I folded them just like you don't like them to be folded when you read your newspaper. I didn't clip them out, though.
No clippings.
I've done that, though.
I know you have. We have a whole book somewhere, all this moving. It's been shuffled about, but there's a book with a whole bunch of newspaper clippings in it. So paper money. This is one Lance's. An unlikely coalition is warning people could be losing more than they bargained for. Banknote printers have pooled resources to fund studies to show how cash is an important piece of infrastructure. In the U.S., Stephen Ferry carries in his wallet, in addition to cash, a supply of small cards created by one of a growing number of pro-cash groups that tout the benefits of physical money. He hands them to cashiers and leaves them on checks at restaurants. I paid cash today for a reason, smiley face, they read. Using cash can be inconvenient, but what if it's worth it?
I need to get some of those cards. I'm all about it. That's the one thing when I read that article that I'm like, I need to contact these people and get some of those cards, because unless the transaction is online, I pay cash. If I have to use the credit card, I turn to my wife. I think I've only used my credit card since they put a chip on it, I've only used it twice because I never get it right. I've tried to use it like 5 times. I've failed 3 times. Twice after multiple opportunities, I got it right. And the 3 times I failed, I went ahead and paid cash for it. I mean, because you put this chip on, all of a sudden it doesn't work the same way. You got to stick it in there and then take it out when it says to, except sometimes it says to and it doesn't want it and it says it's wrong. I don't know. It's just easier to pay cash. I'm quicker.
Yeah, but see, the other cohort may contend that it's quicker to not use cash, right?
And then you're trusting the machine to make sure it doesn't take more out.
Here we go.
And the bank doesn't cheat you.
Yeah. We're trusting that anyway. Aren't you auto paid on the first of every month?
Only over my dead body. Yeah.
Well, but that's how your money comes in,
I was
right?
the last one.
That money?
I was the last one to go on auto pay.
There's no physical exchange of material money that takes place between the paying institution and your bank, all digitized.
I know.
And sitting in a digital account.
What do I do as soon as it's there?
Go drive there to withdraw some cash.
You got it. That's it. Because it makes me feel total and human.
So is cash just providing us the illusion of control then? Is that why we are holding on to it?
No, it's not. Because it also, as you read further in that article, it helps many of us stay on budget. Oh, what is the credit card debt in the United States right now? Huh? People can't pay it. Oh, in August 30th, their student loans are coming due after 3 years. There was an article in the paper today about a guy who took out a loan 10 years ago, and all of a sudden now they're going to foreclose on his house because he hadn't paid it and they had quit sending him bills. Doesn't happen to me. I pay cash. I know my bills are paid.
Brett Scott, author of Cloud Money, Cash, Cards, and Crypto, and the War for Our Wallets. Boy, that sounds like something that could have been authored by Lance Jackson, yours truly. Argues that cash provides freedom, anonymity, and security. Others say it can help track their spending. Quote, it's easier to stick to your budget when you're at the supermarket. If I'm using my card or phone, it would quickly get out of control.
See, because if you go and you have $200 for your groceries that week, month, how many people you're buying for, and you get to the register and it's more than that, then you have to have them put stuff back. If you had a card, oh, it's an extra $30. Okay. And you do that repeatedly, then all of a sudden, what happens to your electronic funds in your bank that you never touch? It's not there. See, if you have cash, you know whether or not your bill is paid.
Isn't the majority of all your wealth and assets, though, not held in cash? I mean, for all of us? I mean, even people who purport to have lots of cash on
it is, and it drives me crazy that it's not. I want more cash all the time.
So the bigger question the article contends is whether bills and coins make a comeback, or on the flip side, insisting on them amounts to little more than a protest against the speed with which the world is changing. One of the subjects of the article has begun using cash to pay her bills at a post office, which in the UK can offer some of the services provided by banks. She concedes it's difficult to use cash for everything. I'm not an absolutist, she said. The pro-cash message is showing signs of getting through. On Keep It Cash Facebook groups, supporters are naming businesses that refuse to take cash. Others describe the difficulty of persuading bank tellers to let them withdraw large sums of folding money. Cash withdrawals ticked up slightly in the UK last year, the result, economists say, of people wanting to stock some away.
Okay, well, as you're reading that's fine. But let's talk about when you dine out. When you dine out, you get a bill. And in many restaurants that I go to, there are two prices on the bill. One is if you're paying cash, and one is 4% higher if you're using a credit card, because they're going to make you pay the credit card fee. Also, my local mechanic does that. If you pay with a credit card, you pay 4% more because you pay the credit card company fee that he has to pay to have the credit card available in his store. So by paying cash, I'm saving 4%. Also, if you work in the hospitality industry, I'm more likely to leave you a tip if I'm carrying cash than if I have a credit card. And that tip will be bigger because if I'm forced to use my credit card, it puts me in a bad mood. And so I figure out exactly, and I leave you the exact amount of what a 20% tip is going to be. If I'm paying in cash and I want to get up and leave, and I don't want to wait for you to bring the change back, I might tip you 25, 30% just because of the cash that's in my pocket.
A lot of it depends, right, on whether you're shopping in a place that charges a fee or not. Because if you're shopping in a place that doesn't charge a fee, there's a pretty good chance, take Walmart or Kroger or whatever, for example, some mega corporation, they've already built that into their cost structure. So whether you pay cash or card, you're paying the fee regardless. It's just a question of whether or not you're making use of the convenience.
Well, some of us like to promote local businesses,
sure,
and not give it to the man.
It's very difficult to completely avoid the man, though. Actually, if you wanted to stick it to the man, when you go to Walmart, you would always pay card because they would be getting less of your money because they have to pay part of it back in processing. You give them cash, they get to keep all of it. Ooh, there's a new conundrum for the friendly redneck liberal.
Well,
on
first
those
of all,
rare occasions that he has to go to the
First
man.
of all, you have to go to Walmart.
Yeah.
And I avoid Walmart like
to the
plague.
extent that you can.
Yes.
But anytime you go to a mega store, if you're somebody that wants to stick it to that mega store, then you would actually be better off paying card rather than cash. Because if you pay cash, they'll keep 100% of your cash. And if you pay card, they will lose part of that to the processing
That's a
companies.
fair point. It's a fair point because I'm already mad because I have to self-checkout and I get no rebate for that.
Right.
I might as well. I mean, why don't I get hired for 10
So
minutes?
now you can rip them off by paying card too.
There we go.
I think the thing with the processing fees, just to be clear, because that's a common thing cited by folks, it's been outrageous for years. It's still outrageous. There ought to be legislation that caps processing fees to a flat rate per transaction that companies are allowed to charge. We're allowing corporate giants to, basically to rob, small businesses and big businesses, all businesses, of way more than is necessary to profit on the processing
the transaction
of
people using.
You don't need
card.
to charge a 3.5% fee on a transaction. You could charge a flat amount because it does cost something, right, folks? I mean, why is there any fee at all? Well, because believe it or not, there's a fee for using cash too. Somebody has to be paid to count that cash, to fill out a deposit slip, to take it to the bank. It has to be paid to take into the bank. The bank spends money processing the cash. There's expense with any kind of money, whether it's card or cash. There is money involved in processing those payments and keeping money flowing from person to person.
Right, because a $4,000 bill
is just as much work,
as much process as a $10 item.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're buying something with a card and it's $10, or you're buying something with a card and it's, $5,000, the work involved in getting money from A to B is really no different. The only real difference is that larger transactions may need more review for, potential fraud. But again, then it should be, a simple two-tiered system of transactions below X, are 10 cents and transactions over $5,000 are 20 cents.
But what happens when you walk into the place of business and they say their computer's down and they can't accept a card?
Yep.
You just walk out?
I guess so.
You do without that day?
I guess so.
Okay. See, I've got cash.
Yeah.
I'm good either way.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they take cash.
Well, they
and if
will.
they can make change without their machine.
Well, that's a whole nother.
Oh yeah,
not
whole nother ball of wax.
Teaching students how to count money.
Yep.
So they don't know if they're getting ripped off or not because they can't count money.
Got to trust the machine, Lance. Right. Trust that system, baby.
Trust the machine. AI.
Trust the machine.
Here we go. Just implant it in your brain, and nobody has to think for themselves.
No, but I do think processing fees need to be capped because the reality is we're moving more and more toward a cashless society, and there's no reason to continue to give a portion of everybody's wealth to processing companies. You might as well keep it in the hands of the businesses or the consumers either way.
Sad state of affairs.
Well, better for the environment. There is that. We don't need to cut down trees to make paper for bills that don't last very long. Spend more money making money than the money's worth.
It's not made out of tree money. It's not made out of trees.
Right.
It's made out of fibers,
yes.
Not tree fibers.
Still.
Get your argument right. Eco-terrorist.
Eco-terrorist. He's the friendly redneck liberal today, folks. And the next one he loves just as much. You'll want to cut this one out. Newspaper clippings. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. Newspapers, they're in front of us. And it used to be one of the best ways before the dawn of the internet to share a piece of information with somebody was you saw something interesting in the newspaper, cut it out, mail it to them, or hand it to them, right? I thought you might like this. And really, it's the share button before there was a share button. That's kind of what it is. So what's going on, Lance?
Meaning what you're saying is nothing in technology is new. We just found a new way to do it. It's basically the same things we've always done. We just put the parentheses around it and say, well, this is a better way of doing it than what we've done in the past.
A newer way.
Yes. I don't know whether
a modern way.
Well, this is a shout out to one of my mentors in education. He has since passed away, but a fellow teacher, Mr. Cayley, would come in every morning in front of the teacher mailboxes and deposit clippings from newspapers. He was the most voracious reader that I have ever been around. He would go home at 3:30 or so, and he would sit down in his chair, and he would have his 2 big 32-ounce drinks from Speedway, his bag of chips, a stack of books, and a stack of newspapers, and a stack of magazines by his chair, and flip on the TV until it was time to go to bed and sit there and read. And while he would read, he would clip out different things that he thought different teachers would be interested in. And that's what this article talks about. There's a man here, Stephen Butkus. The 71-year-old clips newspaper and magazine articles at home in Massachusetts, where he keeps a photocopier, envelopes, and stamps. Wow, stamps too? And to mail copies to family and friends. He says, I try to inform and amuse instead of his longtime habit of circulating stuff that he reads. He also there are other people. Joe Kosika's mother still mails him clips from her local newspaper in Niagara Falls, New York. The 39-year-old middle school math teacher grew up there and now lives with his wife in Virginia. The most recent clip from his mother was an obituary for his former barber, which struck him as thoughtful and somewhat odd. I talk to my mother once a week on the phone, but she didn't mention it to me at all. I found it through the mail. What do you think of this, Justin? Huh? I mean, would you like for me to start doing this for you? I do it for other people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of do it right now.
We do it now, right?
We don't cut them out.
I don't clip it for. I don't clip it for you.
Right.
But I lay stuff on your desk or at your place.
Yes.
At the table where we do pre-shows, and I'll, for Justin's not a show topic. Yeah. Just I see something that
of interest
that Justin, I think, would enjoy. Right. I mean, what do you think of that method of doing things, of finding things for people that that you think would interest them?
I guess 2 things that I wrote down while you were speaking is this idea going to make a comeback, and are there real benefits? To the first point of, is it going to make a comeback? I guess I would tell anybody that there's very few technologies that I would just count out altogether, and say, just forget it. There's never going to be a resurgence. And I guess I would point to the fact that, for the past decade, vinyl has been making a resurgence. There's an interest in that sort of, retro technology. And even in more recent years, you have both older and younger people who are gaining interest in like VHS tapes and DVDs, which for me is strange. Just like I've
got some if anybody needs them.
It's strange for people, who remember when vinyl was the option. Mm-hmm. It's strange that people would now want to collect. It's like, well, why would you want it? Like, there's so much more convenient ways to do it. Why would you want to do it that way? Same thing with, VHS and DVDs. Like, well, why would you want to? But the point is that it is new to people that didn't grow up with it, and that wasn't the only option to use. So I guess, could it make a comeback? Sure. I think that there's a possibility, that newspapers could. I don't think it's likely. I think what we're more likely to see is some kind of digital version designed to more closely mimic, the relatability of newspaper. But I do think there's real benefits to it, because to your point, Lance, when I share something on social media with somebody, right? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I could share it to my feed, for example, or I could direct message it to somebody. There's different options for me to get something that I want somebody else to see to them. Just in my experience of when people send me those things, I maybe actually get to end up looking at maybe half of them, maybe a quarter of them, but definitely not anywhere close to all of them. It's just not very personal, and it doesn't take very long to press a share button. So I think one of those is that old human notion that when we physically get a physical thing, regardless of whether it's actually valuable or not, it conveys some sort of real value to people. Somebody took time to clip this out, and in the example of the article, to mail it to me or to remember to bring it with them. And then they gave me a thing, right? When I send you something digitally, it doesn't really feel like I gave you something. I just shared it with you because I didn't really give that to you. It's not yours now. You know what I mean? I just shared with you something else that I saw.
Historically, article clipping and sharing dates back to the early 1800s when newspapers started mass production in urban areas, said Eric Lehman, an English professor at the University of Bridgeport in Bridgeport, Connecticut. People would cut out and mail stories as well as advertisements to relatives in rural areas who pasted them into scrapbooks. It was like curating a Facebook page, Lehman said. Sharing information online, quote, seems impersonal now to us.
Whoa, almost like I said that.
That might explain why some people refuse to drop the clipping habit. Well, every once in a while you say something ingenious, and I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt there.
Okay, every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. And well, that's why I keep you
around. Write
around.
this day down in history every once.
Now,
in a while.
Shirley Finney, 80, of East Hartford, Connecticut, sends clippings from 2 local papers in envelopes adorned, here's your personal thing too, right? Adorned with heart-shaped stickers or ones of cowboy hats and boots if she's mailing her grandson. To save on postage, lady after my own heart, Finney tries to include more than one clipping, which she cuts out using her grandmother's pinking shears to make zigzag edges. Have you ever seen those?
Yes.
Those, I mean, that's when you know, grandma cares about you.
Now we're getting serious.
She's using her pinking shears.
Little shapes.
Mm-hmm, you're getting shapes and everything else. Among the articles that Finney has sent her daughter was one about how to protect dry cat food from mites. This is one I like, though. Finney recently cut out a comic strip from the Hartford Courant and included it with her payment to the utility company to express her frustration with the expensive total. The joke? The inventor of electricity also invented the electric bill. Quote, I am a frugal woman, she said. I like that. She also sends it in the bills she pays to make a political statement about the cost of the bill. Now, come on. Who wouldn't get a chuckle out of that? If some old lady sent you a comic strip telling you how you're ripping her off.
Well, the other thing is those of us that like to collect things, what are we going to do if there's not, old newspapers to hold on to?
What are you going to remember? What are you going to remember Grandma and your friendly redneck liberal from? You're going to have your thoughts, open up my Facebook page and look at it because it'll still be out there on the cloud.
You'll be memorialized
long after I'm dead
on Facebook.
But instead, you could actually go to those yellowed pieces of newspaper and that you've saved and read them and say, he actually thought I would be interested in something like this at one time. I better reread it. And all those glowing memories of me and you're laughing at me would come rushing back and put a smile on your face, and I would lower your blood pressure, and all because I took the time to read something that I didn't necessarily maybe was interested in, but I knew you well enough that I made sure that you would like it. And I think that's the personal touch that we miss. Because like you said, we just hit send, forward, whatever, and we just mass it out. But when you do this, you have to know the people that you're sending it to. For example, I have no interest at all in the English monarchy, but my wife is enamored with it. And so as I'm reading the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago, I'm just pulling article after article, and she was excited to read all of them. She goes, I know you don't like this stuff, but it's nice that you thought of me because I'm really enjoying this. Mm-hmm. And so it's a chance to show those people that you care about that you are on their mind while you're doing another activity, that they are on your mind while you do another activity. And I think that sort of human kindness could go a long way to making the world a better place.
I wouldn't count newspapers and clippings fully out of the game because, remember, if we want to talk historically, right, everybody felt like that radio would kill the newspaper and then that TV would kill radio. And the internet would kill TV, and
MTV would kill the DJ,
and MTV would kill the DJ, and on, right? Or that CDs would kill vinyl, or that, I mean, it just, there's lots of examples of old mediums. I mean, people have thought for centuries that books would be killed off, they've been predicting that for, 200 or 300 years now, that they've been gone, but books, those are going to go away. And they're still here. And in fact, made a pretty big resurgence during the pandemic. We saw more people reading than have in the past, decade or so. So, I don't know. I guess when you're talking about humans, logic doesn't always fully dictate the equation. We are emotional beings, and that plays into it.
We have a heart. How
we connect and tactile experiences are important to people for making connections. So, there's a reason that, the younger generations are interested in collecting vinyl, for example. And it's not a technical convenience one. That's not the reason. Because if that was the reason, they wouldn't do it, So it has something to do with
better sound.
The emotional value of physically having something and experiencing something that isn't as simple as punching it into your phone and getting an answer. Doesn't mean that punching something into your phone and getting an answer is bad. It just means that...
Or streaming.
Right.
I mean, because you can stream the music coming through, right. And it's not necessarily the same as taking it out,
replaced,
putting it on a record player and setting the needle on there and listening to it come through your speakers.
Yep. So, we got one more thing.
This is even better.
Goodbye,
this kind of puts it all together. They're actually saying that my age group is so important that they're teaching a class about us in a high school and developing a curriculum to go out to the whole country.
Waste of time or valuable? We're about to find out. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. A high school teacher in New York recently asked her students an age-old question. Oh, see the pun there. What age is old? Brace yourself if you were born in the 20th century.
Be careful.
Brace yourself. Now, before I start throwing some things out,
these are real live answers.
We have a youngin in the room, or a more youngin in the room.
He was born in this century.
But before I start reading, yes, he was. That
you better be careful because you're close to reaching the age of what they consider.
I'm reading the article here. I don't like these answers.
What these teenagers consider old, Justin, you're almost there.
So let's turn over to our associate recording producer Levi here and ask him what age do you consider to be old? Somebody says, how old is old? What do you say?
I'd say probably 60s, mid-60s.
Mid-60s. Okay. 60s, mid-60s. Well, that one I feel like that's... I feel like if we asked a lot of people, you'd probably get, something in the 60s.
60s the new 40
plus range.
You guys, 60s the new 40.
You know who comes up with those? People in their 60s.
People in their 60s?
That's right. So let's ask the friendly redneck liberal, what would you say is old? If somebody asked you, define what age, when does old start?
Well, I never thought I'd see my 60s, so 60s is old to me.
See, he's just going to argue the other side, Levi, because that's what we do.
No, I always thought that,
So 60.
Somebody in their 60s was old. Right. Until I got there. And then I realized it's not necessarily old. Age is just a number, dude.
So
age is just a number.
The answers to the age question were across the board from 35, one student said, 72 said another, one kid said 46, all over the place. The exercises are part of a new effort in the nation's largest public school district to teach teenagers how to relate to older Americans. The youngsters are watching videos that help build empathy with older people.
See, what's wrong with that?
I didn't say anything was wrong.
I think it's good. I mean, who do you turn to at the youth center to connect with all these teenagers that you have? Who do you turn to with the hardest cases?
The old people.
Huh?
Who doesn't love a grandpa?
See? You turn to us old folks.
Well, unless they're
to work with
too grouchy, and then
I think I'm turning them into more of them like me. We're not grouchy. We have expectations. Besides, what's wrong with Oscar the Grouch? He's my favorite Muppet.
So the curriculum is being tested at 13 New York City public high schools for the first time this spring semester, including at the School for Human Rights in Brooklyn, where this teacher is employed. One of the teens said the lessons have made her more patient with her grandma, who recently activated closed captioning on her TV, but couldn't figure out how to turn it off. She was like, I don't know why I'm struggling so much. And the student said, I said, it's okay. I felt old in the past few weeks, empathized the teen, who was recently around 6-year-olds who sang TikTok songs she didn't recognize. The new curriculum sprang from high school students who were interns at New York City's Department of the Aging 2 years ago, said Commissioner Lorraine Vasquez. The interns pointed out how evil characters in children's movies often are gray and appear old, such as Cruella de Vil, the Disney villain who cloaks herself in dog fur and a plume of cigarette smoke. The schools in the current pilot will give feedback this summer, and the aging department will consider tweaks for next school year.
Don't we want young people and old people to connect? Isn't that something that in a society that we should value if we don't value it? Because old people have what? They have experience. What is it that young people lack? Experience. What is it that younger people have that older people don't? Is they have an energy and a strength that old people don't. So the smart young people learn from the older people, and then they can apply it, and with their energy get more done and accomplish more than the older person can. Or the ignorant younger person can totally dismiss what the older person has to say and then make the same mistakes that the older person made and waste their time and not accomplish as much as they could. For example, I've been talking to our intern about how to invest money.
Yes.
And he is all into that. And if he does that, he's going to learn from my mistakes and get an earlier start.
Get ahead.
Okay. But he wouldn't have known that because the only other person that had talked to him about it was his dad, who is not, way older, way younger than me. So again, he's getting solid advice from older people that if he listens to, he won't make the same mistakes that we did. So, and then there's family stories, family history. Justin, I know you're big on that. Where do those come from? Yep. Those come from grandma and grandpa at the dinner table or at Thanksgiving or at Christmas. And you learn about your family and you learn about your family history. If you just poo-poo old people, then you don't have that connection. If you don't listen to people who have different color hair. By the way, you young people with your purple and orange and pink hair, that's a different color. Why are you hating on white?
It's a societal thing because, there are some cultures, right, where we revere those people. And really, it's not about one being better than the other, to Lance's point. It's not about young being better than old or vice versa. They each are good in different ways, and that's the whole point of building that empathy and ability to work together. There's a lot of value for both to provide the other. The young can help the old figure things out that they might have a harder time, navigating on their own. And the old can instill that wisdom to hopefully help the young avoid some of the mistakes that they made and not have to go through quite as much pain or suffering. So those are just simple give and takes, but why not take advantage of that?
So much animosity in the world today between different groups of people. What's wrong with teaching that understanding and breaking down some of those stereotypes in any phase, in any relationship, so that, we learn to treat each other with more respect. It's like when I go up and, the cashier's younger, And they're making jokes about me being old. And I'm like, well, can you count my change? Yeah, I can. I said, well, there you go. I'm impressed, you know? And they go, well, I'm just teasing you. I said, well, I'm teasing you back. And then when I go the second, third, or fourth time, they fight over getting to wait on me because we've developed that rapport and that respect with one another.
You can't do that with the electronic kiosk.
You can't do that with a credit card or the electronic kiosk.
Okay.
And this is towards Levi. They got some teenagers up and they said, do some exercises like an old person. And they came in and they half did jumping jacks and struggled to bend over to touch their toes. And then they brought in some real life 60-year-olds who could do things on the yoga mat that the teenagers couldn't do. So, you know, I was teasing him last night because, you know, he's going to go work out at the Y.
Oh, yeah.
And so we started lifting things around the youth center and they got tired before I did. So I said, yeah, maybe you guys do need to go lift.
As part of my generation, I can agree with that.
Because, you know, when you just sit around
marshmallow
and
muscles,
watch TikTok videos,
yep,
all of a sudden you don't have the
You're
muscles
squishy.
of a 60-year-old who's chopping wood and, you know, loading up trucks and pushing lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff, right?
And doing work.
And doing work. That's right.
Oh, boy.
Now, just because if they did work, they could work maybe 6 hours a day for 4 or 5 days in a row, and I'm good for one day, and then I need 2 days off.
Right.
But I can outwork them on a single
But
day.
when I'm working.
That's right.
Aren't we still fighting redlining and in housing? Segregation and housing. And now we're going to do that. Well, we got all this senior living places, you know, and it's not that there's anything wrong if you want to live in a place like that, but don't we want our old people to live among our younger communities and vice versa to be able to help and assist one another?
Unless we get them together, we just exaggerate the stereotypes instead of explaining the stereotypes, and then they go away, and then we can make some progress.
So, Lance, why'd we have this conversation today? Was there a point?
Yeah, because I like this stuff, and I
Old
finally got to choose the topic for the day, and so I picked. Notice that I had to pick out 3, whereas you just get one, and we talk about it all the time. I picked out 3 different ones. But we did that because we have a mission here at True Chat, and that's not to discriminate against the old person in the room. Also,
I thought that was.
We have another mission statement. I just wrote that part in.
Oh, okay.
But the real mission statement is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And hopefully you enjoyed today's show. It gets some conversations going, and you can find the newspapers that these are in, and you can run a copy of them and cut them out and give them to your friends, or you can tell them about the show and tell them as a podcast. They can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
The State of Us releases new episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays, first thing in the morning. Those same episodes are heard on AM and FM radio stations across the country on the weekends. For The State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to Associate Recording Producer Levi LaForge and Senior Editing Producer Bradley Bush. Thank you all, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.